I wonder if we're live. Are we live? Hi, everybody. We're live, apparently. Hello, my name's Debra Oswald. I've been a writer for a long time. I write children's books, theatre, novels for adults, and I've written a lot of television over the years. You might know my work from Police Rescue, Bananas in Pyjamas, and maybe I'm probably best known for being the creator of the television series Offspring. So I've been around a long time, punching out stories in all kinds of media. I'm now here to talk to you about my new novel, which is called The Family Doctor, which is there in the corner of the screen with its fabulous cover. So this is the story of a woman called Paula, who's a sort of dedicated, beloved GP. And I'm not giving anything away by telling you this, because this happens in the first few pages of the novel. Paula comes home one day, and she's had her very dear friend Stacey and Stacey's children living with her after they'd fled a violent husband. So Paula comes home one day to find Stacey shot dead, the children shot dead, and the estranged husband prowling the house with a rifle and then shooting himself in front of Paula. So, warning, it starts with a very traumatic scene. Probably the most traumatic scene in the book. So don't be put off, hopefully. And the story grew from the anguish that I feel when I see yet another story on the news or in the newspaper about a woman and often children killed by a violent partner. And I found myself, as I think many of us feel, incredibly sad and helpless and often very angry. And I wanted to find a way to write a story that would channel some of that anger, but also weld that anger to positive, beautiful forces in the world, like female friendship and the urge to protect vulnerable people. So the story follows Paula after this incredibly traumatizing experience, where she's grief-stricken and full of guilt about the fact that she didn't protect her friend better, as she sees it. And when she goes back to work, she finds herself dealing with patients who are coming in who are clearly trapped in violent, difficult relationships. And I sort of really put the pressure on Paula in ways that, if you read the book, you will see, to the point where she crosses the line. She decides she will use her medical skills to solve a problem to keep a woman safe. So the book is about Paula's journey dealing with the rage and the grief that she feels about her friend and other women that she encounters in her work as a doctor. And Paula's best friend, Anita, who's a court reporter. So in the courtroom facing endless trials, murder trials and so forth. And the story has dark elements, undoubtedly, but it's also a story about the friendship between these two women and the sort of the kind of nuances in long-term female friendship, the little shifts in dependence and the little resentments, but underneath all that, the kind of powerful love and support and strength between women friends. I should also say that it's not a book that that is man-hating. You know, I've chosen to live with a man for the last 40 years. My sons are very good men, and I now have a new grandson who is the most glorious child on the planet. So it's not a man-hating book, and there are good men in the book. And there's a love story, because it was really important to me that the kind of life of the book include the possibility of respectful, tender, and very sexy relationships between men and women. So it's a tough read in many ways, but it's a thriller. I mean, not a thriller in the sense of a a puzzle. It's not one of those books where there's twists and reveals and you have to solve a mystery. It's a thriller in the sense of characters that hopefully you care about are in jeopardy. They're either in physical jeopardy or they're facing a moral dilemma. And hopefully you'll want to stay up late at night and keep reading so that you find out what happens to Paula and Anita. It's very weird to be talking about a book about a murder. I never thought I was the kind of person who would write about murder. I've killed people before. I've killed lots of characters in plays and on television, and to many people I am notorious for killing Patrick on Offspring. But I've never written something where murder was central to the plot. And in a way, this one came about because my distress about these cases again and again and again meant that I, for the first time in my life, found myself thinking, that's a murder I can imagine committing. I can imagine my head into that, because I'm not interested in books about monsters. I'm much more interested in all of us, flawed, regular, kind of decent people struggling to make our way in life and messing it up. So Paula and Anita and some of the other characters in the book are you and me. They're regular people doing their best in life. They're faced with some monsters in this, the sort of violent men. But actually the focus of the book is not on those violent men. The focus of the book is on how would you respond how would you feel if you had the opportunity to do something, even if it was morally wrong, but that it could make a woman and her child safe. Would you be tempted? And once you were tempted, what would happen to you then? Paula's a good person. She's you or me in an extremely pressured moment in her life. So once she does this extreme action, she feels what you and I would feel, in that she's terrified and full of remorse and begins to unravel inside. So I found that a very satisfying experience to kind of imagine my way into the head of somebody who's basically a regular good person who does a very wrong thing and then has to decide how to deal with it. Thank you very much to the people who are saying they've already enjoyed it. That's excellent to hear. It's always nerve-wracking when a book finally goes out into the world that nobody's read for a long time. Marg Freeman is asking me, do you find writing a novel or a screenplay more enjoyable? Which is the more difficult to write? Oh, that's a really interesting question. Because I've always jumped between fiction and stage and screen. And they all offer the same essential challenge, which is constructing a story which is intriguing and surprising but still plausible, and characters that you can care about. The big difference is that in screen, you're generally working with other people. Even though you're writing the script on your own, there's usually been story meetings with other writers, which are, can I tell you, such enormous good fun. It's impossible to explain how much fun it is. And you're also dealing with other people in terms of networks and producers and directors and actors and so forth. And the beautiful thing about that is that you get the input of all these incredibly talented people to help you tell that story. But the downside of that is that you're answerable to so many other people. You are trying to please actors and directors, and sometimes you're at the mercy of budget, and sometimes at the mercy of the weather. At the moment in Sydney, it's bucketing rain. So if you'd written a scene that had to be set outside, you'd have to madly rewrite. And the other thing about screen is that, lots of people see it. I mean, when we were at our height with Offspring, we had 1 million viewers, which is kind of, can I tell you, as thrilling as it sounds. Novel writing is much more solitary, and sometimes that can feel a bit lonely. I don't mean, I can go and have lunch with a friend if I'm lonely, but you don't have that kind of creative fellowship that you get in the theatre and in TV. But the upside of that is that I have control. The characters will say exactly what I want them to say. No one's going to tap me on the shoulder and say my character wouldn't say that line. The characters say exactly what I want them to say. So with a novel, I can take an idea, because this book is quite a kind of extreme idea, and without having to explain it to anyone, I can just try. I can just have a go at telling that story and see if it works out. So that's incredibly enjoyable about writing for books. So they're not, one is not harder than the other, just different. So Jane Tara is asking, what does my workday look like? Well, you're getting to see what my work room looks like because I'm in it now. I don't normally have my book up behind me like that. But I'm in my little office in my house with a computer and a big desk, a standing desk, so a standing adjustable desk so I can stand up or sit down. My dog is usually sitting, he's right here now, he's sitting at my feet right now. And I try to, because I've never had a real job, I've always been a writer, so I tend to treat the job in quite a disciplined way, like it's a job. I walk my dog first thing, and sometimes that can even be a form of work too, because when you're walking, you're thinking about the story and sometimes solving. I hope you can still hear me. Yes, there I am again. And then sometimes in the afternoon I'll do other tasks, or I'll reread the stuff I've written. But I tend to work in a fairly disciplined way most weekdays. Yeah. So Lee Ravel asks, I would imagine having to share control could be very challenging. You're talking about, Lee, in screenwriting. And yeah, like it's a double-edged sword, because why wouldn't you want Asher Keddie and Cat Stewart playing your characters? I mean, lucky me. But it's funny because in Screen, someone else is choosing the house that the scene is filmed in, or they're deciding what angle a character is shot from, what camera angle. Whereas in a novel, I describe the house to you in words if it's important that you know what the house looks like. And I get to decide what you think about and look at moment to moment. And that's part of the fun of writing a novel compared to Screen. No, it is coming on to, I think the book is coming, someone's saying it's not it's not available on Audible, but there has been an audio book recorded. So I'm not sure when that's available and where it's available, but it is coming, and it's read by the wonderful Maria Angelico. So if you're an audiobook person and you want to consume the story that way, hold on. It's either out there now or it's coming soon. And Perry's asking if I have a screen adaptation in development, and the answer is yes. I've been in television a long time, so I know that there's no guarantees, but I'm working with a producer called Joanna Werner, who made Dance Academy and Riot and some other great things, and she and I are working on the scripting now. I've written the first episode pilot script, and we will now go out and try to find finances to make it. So I think that it's interesting already adapting it. I feel like I've got a different hat on. I'm being quite tough with the material as an adapter. That novelist didn't know what she was doing. I'm telling the story slightly differently, but the essence of it is the same, obviously, because it's me and that's the story. It's fun working out how to convert things that are easy in a novel into a version on screen that you can see. And yeah, I'll be interested to see what the process is like, and fingers crossed it happens. So Jane Tara has asked, the subject matter is timely but also difficult, which is true. How was it dealing with that each day? Was I able to leave it behind at the end of the work day? Yeah, that's a really good question. There are times when it was very distressing. I did a lot of research for the book, talking to doctors and lawyers who work in the criminal system, and a friend of mine who's a former coroner. And I read lots of judges' reports about the trials that involve the same sort of material. You all know the stories I'm talking about. Sadly, there's no shortage of them. And there would be days when I could look at it dispassionately and just take what I needed to tell my story, and there were days when the weight of that would hit me pretty hard. And I'm a fairly method writer in a way. I tend to kind of imagine my way into the scene my characters are in. So I will march up and down the hallway crying or being angry or laughing, or you can imagine my dog is very confused sometimes. So there were times when it was really hard, and there are some scenes in the book that I still find hard to read, and there are moments that make me cry even now after all the rewrites and process. And interestingly, they're often the moments when someone is kind. You know how when you're upset about something and someone comes over and very kindly asks how you are, that can be the thing that makes you burst into tears. Well, that's how I am with this book. There's moments, because there's very kind, beautiful people in this book, and the moments with them were the ones that would often undo me as I was writing it. Where are we? Now that I've released the book, will I be writing more novels in the future? Kylie, thank you for your question. I don't know. I hope so. I'm not sure. I'll be working on the television series for a while. I've got a few ideas in my head for things to do, so we'll see. I've been a writer for 40 years, so sometimes I feel a little bit not physically exhausted, but emotionally exhausted about the process. So I'm not making any guarantees about what I'm going to do in the future. We'll see. But I'm about to do a one-woman show at the Griffin Theatre in Sydney, where I'm going to talk on stage for 75 minutes. That's going to just about wear me out, I think. So at the end of that, I might collapse for a while and then see what happens next after that. Oh, you want a Clancy cameo in the TV series, Perry? Well, I don't actually, do you know what? I don't think there's a dog in the book. Normally, I always have a dog in everything I write, but there isn't a dog in this one. It just occurred to me. But we can fix that in the TV series. Don't worry, I'll put a dog in it. So Vanessa Hatfield asks, what is my advice to aspiring writers? Oh, it's always so hard to answer this, because it depends where somebody's coming from. And some of this is boring because everybody says the same things because they're true. You have to write a lot and you have to read a lot. I'm always astonished when people tell me they want to be writers and they don't actually read. So you have to read a lot and suck ideas from other people and learn about how to write by reading other good writing. I'm a big believer in keeping a notebook of little details that occur to you, even though they don't seem to belong in anything that you're writing. I've kept notebooks since I was 12, and I've used notes from that notebook 20 years later sometimes, where an idea just clips together with another idea and there's a story. I'm also a big believer in talking about stories out loud. I know some people think that you should keep quiet and keep your story to yourself, but I think that there's a lot of value in telling the story out loud to somebody that you trust. because human beings are natural storytellers. You know, when you are telling an anecdote from your weekend, every time you tell the story, you tell it slightly better. You know, you work out which bit is funny, which bit is confusing, how to tell the order of events. It's the same for fiction writers. So I would find someone who's prepared to listen to you. In my case, it's my partner, and go for long walks and talk your story aloud, and solutions will come to you as you're talking. That's one tip I can think of. What is my favourite author and what am I currently reading? Ooh, I don't have one favourite author, obviously, because I like lots of people. And I like a range of things. So, like, I've had a run of reading all those fantastic, smart, historical novels by great women like Hilary Mantel and Geraldine Brooks and Rose Tremaine. I really loved The Great Believers by Rebecca Mackay. Anyone who watched It's a Sin, that series that was on TV on Stan recently about the gay community dealing with AIDS in the 1980s, Rebecca Mackay's novel, The Great Believers, which I think won the Pulitzer, is set in the similar period in Chicago, and it's a wonderful, smart, warm, great book. I'm going through a stage of reading books only by women. I just feel like after 61 years on this planet, men have talked at me enough for a while. For a while, the men can shut up, and I'm just going to read books by women. And so as part of that, I'm going back and reading women who were a bit neglected or who passed me by. So, for example, there's an amazing American author called Alison Lurie who won the Pulitzer in 1984. We've never heard of her in Australia generally. And she wrote this great book called Foreign Affairs, for which she won the Pulitzer in 1984. And I just finished it, and it's great. So there's gems by women that we overlooked. So I'm trying to dig those out. Where are we? Do I have a group of pre-readers? Do you, Christine? Do you mean? I assume you mean like. Oh, I see. People who read for me, right? Yes, I do. My partner always reads for me, and for this book, it depends a bit on the book. Like for this book, it was read for me by my sister, who's a GP, so she read it to check that I got the medical stuff right, and my friend, who's a former coroner, read it to check that I got the legal stuff right. It was also read for me by my two daughters-in-law, partly because they're smart, good readers who read a lot of fiction, and partly because, in a way, I was writing it for them. I was writing it for fabulous, strong young women who were going to have to tackle this problem in the decades ahead. So I kind of wanted to hear their input. So they're my pre-readers. Am I a plotter or a pantser? I see, by the seat of the pants. This is Sarah Barrett asking, do I know where the story will go right from the start? Good question. A combination of the two. So I always try to tell myself I know where I'm going. So I try to plot it out, and I use file cards, and I write each story beat on a file card, and I lay them out on the dining room table and try to see the whole story and see if it makes sense and where there are holes and where it's boring and so forth. But then in the process of writing it, stuff changes, and particularly in a scene. So you might know what a scene needs to do, but because I sort of tend to immerse myself emotionally, once you're in that scene and I'm playing it like I'm the character in the moment, you think, oh my God, actually you would feel this, or you wouldn't do that, you would actually do this. So that's fascinating. That's part of I don't hold with this idea that your characters surprise you, because it's all me and it's all coming out of my head. So, but it can feel that way sometimes, that the reality of a moment, when you truly imagine it, I can scribble a note saying, oh, this happens. But when I get into the flesh of that scene, I discover all kinds of corners and pockets in it which surprise me. And they are the most fun days of all as a writer. Where are we? How did my sister react to the story from a doctor's point of view? Well, she was mostly worried that people would think that she murders people, and I want to be on the record now as saying my sister does not murder people. She's a very good, caring doctor. And in a way, it was my having watched her over all these years being a doctor that inspired the book, because I was thinking about the fact that when you're a doctor, your job is to take care of people, women and little children with their little bodies, and you're vaccinating them and treating their ear infections. And the idea that that little child would be in danger and you don't, and the system doesn't always work to protect people, that as a doctor, you can be thinking, okay, here are the options. It's my job to take care of somebody. None of the, doctors deal all the time with the fact that often no treatment option is 100% perfect, but they just make the best choice they can. And doctors are often kind of fixers, solving other people's problems. So that's Paula's headspace, which is part of the problem for her, because when she gets in a mess, when she is traumatized, she's used to fixing other people's problems, not seeking help for herself. So some of the turns in the story come from the headspace of being a GP, if that makes sense. Julie Foster's asking me, as I'm writing, do I have a picture in my mind of real life locations? I do imagine real life locations. A lot of this book is set in Marrickville and Earlwood and Newtown, because I live in the inner west, and so it's fun to picture those places. And weirdly enough, I have a geography of the houses. So when it probably may not be obvious to you, but in my mind, I could take you on a video tour of the houses of the characters. I don't know who's going to play the characters. Julie's also asking who might play the characters on screen. I don't know. I try not to think too far ahead, because the process could take a long time, and you have to cast sometimes big names to get something made. So I try not to think too much about who's going to play it until we're closer to production. Otherwise I'll just be disappointed. So Madonna asks, did I choose the cover? No, I didn't choose the cover, but the publisher, Allen and Unwin, consulted me in the process, and we looked at various options, and I'm really happy with the cover. I think it's fantastic. I think because the book is a thriller, but it's not a murder mystery. So I wanted a cover that would indicate to people that it's a thriller and that it's got some darkness in it, but not set up expectations for, I didn't want a cover that was a stiletto in a pool of blood with a gun or something, those kind. I didn't want that kind of cover. So I think I really like the cover. I mean, I hope other people do too. What else? Where are we? Yes to reading. Yes, Jane Tara says yes to reading women writers. Why not? Let's all do it. I mean, it's not hard. You can find plenty of great books out there by women writers, let me tell you. I've just started reading Jacqueline Maley's novel, which is coming out soon, and she and I are doing a session at the Sydney Writers' Festival together. Her book is called The Truth About Her, and it's so far great. Where are we? Or are we getting near to the end? Do we need to wrap up now? If there's no more questions, I guess I would just like to say thank you very much for tuning in for this, and for people who've already read it, thank you. I mean, every reader is like, honestly, for every author, every reader is like a little gift. And if you're thinking about buying it, I guess please do, but be warned that some of it's upsetting, but hopefully it's all in the context of a loving world as well. So it's my cry of rage, but also my harnessing of beautiful, powerful forces in the world, like female friendship and love of children. So I hope that speaks to some of you anyway. Thank you very much for your questions and for joining in. Bye.